Hello everyone, welcome to another battle report. This one a 4500 point game of Highborn Elves against Vampire Counts. This is a rematch from the game I played against Silas recently, which you will have seen if you watched the last battle report. As always, I'm going to ask you to hit that like and subscribe button if you've not done so already. And then we're going to get into the army lists, which I'll flash up on the screen, and you can pause and take a closer look if you wish to. And then we will get right into deployment. Okay, here we are in deployment then. So we were on frontline as a deployment type, and we're on map number 1, and the secondary objective is to secure the targets. I'll just talk you through the units. We've got a unit of vampire knights and a count, and then a unit of dogs, another unit of vampire knights with a count, another unit of dogs, or I should say dire wolves, unit of ghouls, dark coach, and a big unit of skeleton warriors. Then on Silas's side, an eagle, unit of sea guard, big unit of lion guard with the highborn prince spellcaster, small unit of lion guard, big unit of sea guard there, pair of sky sloops, pair of commanders on griffins, and another eagle. Silas was getting the first turn, so I was standing back and forcing him to move in order to get his shooting and limit his volley fire effect. But there will be a very brief vanguard, which I'll just flash up. So a quick vanguard there, just nudging the dogs a little bit. The world's worst vanguard, that one. Okay. So, an immediate clever advance down the right flank from Silas. Don't know what I was doing giving up this field of vision here with my skeletons. Sloppy deployment on my part. And then sort of more cautious in the middle. There you go. That's Silas's movement 1. Okay, end of Silas's turn 1 here then. And in the magic phase, he's got off the Oaken Throne and the Highborn Elves hereditary spell. The 2 sloops have failed to do any wounds on the coach, which was a bit poor of them. And then the Sea Guard on the left have taken out 6 dogs, and the Sea Guard on the right have taken out 6 ghouls. And forcing Silas to move forwards has denied him quite a bit of shooting. It's taken a rank off the volley fire, and it's made him hit at 4s rather than 3s. So I'm fairly satisfied with that. That's the end of Silas's turn 1. Okay, end of my movement 1 here then, and a couple of objectives in my movement 1. One being to force the issue with these griffins here. I'm not holding back, I'm going in with the skeletons. If Silas wants to charge either of these units, I'm perfectly happy with that, because this is a big poisoned unit and this unit will hold for ages. And the gap here is exactly the right size for these knights to come through and then turn. And of course the distance is in my favour here. So I'm trying to create a bit of a conundrum for Silas there. I've got my dark coach positioned where it is because I'm planning to raise a few ghouls and make it impossible for Silas to charge me on the front because he wouldn't have space to land. And then dogs up in the front here. If the Sea Guard come forward this way, then they'll get molested by knights, and if the Lions Guard come in this way, they'll get molested by knights too. But if they don't, then the knights will be able to charge the Sea Guard later on, being the idea. That's the end of my movement 1. Okay, end of my movement 1 here then, and I have removed the Oaken Throne for the cost of 1 power die. That's all right. And I've got Breath of Corruption off on my caster here, having sacrificed a few dogs. It's exactly 18 inches away from the eagle. I wanted to take out the chaff. However, I failed to do any wounds on the eagle, which was very disappointing. And that's the problem with this Vampire Covenants list that I'm running. It doesn't really have much threat projection. Anyway, it is what it is. That is the end of my turn 1. Okay, on to Silas's movement 2 here then. You can see there are no charges, but there is some strategic movement. Obviously placing the eagle here, good block potentially on this unit here, and dropping the griffins out of the arc of vision of everything so that they can prepare to charge in the following turn. Yeah, interesting that Silas hasn't charged the dogs as this unit is blocked by the eagle there. But such is his decision. Also interesting that he's hanging back with the sloops here, just using their ranged attacks, which are good, they are worthwhile, but I'm surprised at the distance there. Anyway, that's the end of Silas's movement 2. Okay, on to the end of Silas's turn 2 here then, and you can see actually I forgot to mention that he'd moved the prince during his movement phase, so that the prince is now hanging out in this little block here. He's got the Oaken Throne off in his magic phase, and he's got Altered Sight off on the Seaguard unit here, which he's then used to kill 6 ghouls, and the sloops have between them also killed 3 ghouls, so really going to work on this ghoul unit here. Yeah, it's a good play, no? Right, that's the end of Silas's turn 2. Okay, end of my movement 2 here then, and there have been 2 charges, my count having charged out against the eagle over here, and my big unit of skeleton warriors having charged down the hill to the sloop here. Now, I was in 2 minds about whether I was going to be charging earlier on. I wanted to see where Silas would leave his units, but the presence of the griffins here has forced me to get my general out of this unit, and therefore he's too far away from the skeletons. So I figured, well, the skeletons, of course, will then only be moving 4, and I might even get more than that if I fail the charge, and I get 2 goes at it for going downhill. So in I went, and I made the charge, so that's good news. Other than that, swift reforming on my vampires here. You might be thinking that looks like less than an inch. We play to the inner lines of the terrain, so if you're wondering why they look so close to that, that's why. I don't know why we do that, it's just something we've always done. And I've moved the Dark Coach out of the arc of vision of the Griffins here. There's nothing really that I can do to protect these Vampire Knights from a double Griffin charge other than go back 3.5 inches, which I've done. But what I figure is, if Silas charges this unit, I expect the Count to smash through the eagle and he can reform to face this way. So there's the potential for anything that stops in here to get kind of pincered. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, that's the end of my movement 2. Okay, end of my turn 2 here then. In the magic phase, I have removed the Oaken Throne again. And I've got a rise off on the ghouls and brought back 9 of them. It looks there like I got the breath weapon off, Breath of Corruption, but I didn't. I failed, or either it was failed to cast or Silas dispelled it. I'm not sure which, but I didn't remove the token, so that's why that's there. And then in combat, the general killed the eagle. Sorry, not the general. The Count killed the eagle. The general is here, as you would expect, and has reformed so that if the griffins overrun, then he should have a decent chance of being able to charge them. And if they stay where they are, he's still got a fairly good position there. So that's what that's about. And then the skeletons beat the sloop, but didn't catch it. It ran a good distance. And I think I took a wound or 2 from dangerous terrain running through the water feature, actually. And that was the end of my turn 2. Okay, on to Silas's movement 3 here then. And you can see that there have been 3 charges. The double Griffin charge on the Vampire Knights here, which was always likely. And then the Lion Guard here charging this unit of dogs. Other than that, Silas has reformed here with the Sea Guard, ready to take the charge from the Vampire Knights. And he's reformed here with the Sea Guard as well, obviously preparing for possible onslaught from the ghouls. And then he's rallied his sloop right there. He's also plopped his eagle in front of the Dark Coach there. And coming up on the side with this sloop as well, of course. So that's the end of Silas's movement 3. Okay, end of Silas's turn 3 here then, and in the magic phase he's got Altered Sight off on his Sea Guard again over here, obviously in preparation for a charge, and he's got Oaken Throne off on his caster in the middle there. Then he's killed 2 ghouls in the shooting phase with his Sea Guard, and he's killed the little unit of dogs over here with the Sea Guard. So he's taken out the chaff now, so that's good. And then the sloop has also taken out a few ghouls as well. Then in combat, his Lion Guard have smashed the dogs and reformed, ready to countercharge the Vampire Knights here, which is good play. And in combat over here, the Griffin commanders have beaten and forced a pop out of the Vampire Knights, but I issued a challenge with my champion, which meant that one of the two models could only target his attacks on one model in my unit, which meant that all the other models could attack one of the Griffin commanders, and I was able to drop one of the Griffin commanders before my unit died. So it's down by about 100 points, but it could have been a lot worse, so I'm fairly happy with that as an outcome. That's the end of Silas's turn 3. Okay, on to my movement 3 here then, and the first thing you will notice is that there was just about enough room for my Dark Coach to get by the Eagle. If you go back in the video, you'll see it's not that close. So I was able to get that charge in the rear on the Griffin here with the Dark Coach. That's fairly bad news for the Griffin. I then charged, once the Griffin had decided to hold, I charged this unit of White Lions with my, Lion Guard rather, with my Count. Now this is a fairly high risk strategy because of course this unit has got a banner and 3 ranks, so it's starting combat on 4. And I'm in danger of popping, and I've only got a wounds pool of 3, so I need to inflict quite a bit of damage here. But I am at this point getting a charge and a flank, so I'm up by 2 before I start. So I'm going to try and get a bit of Breath of Corruption on him, and see if I can kind of use that to inflict enough wounds as an insurance policy to last long enough without popping for the other Count to come in, being the idea. And then a charge here with the Vampire Knights. The ghouls have also made a charge at the Sea Guard here, and the skeletons have charged the sloop that had rallied. So multi-charges in my movement 3. Okay, end of my turn 3 then. So it's worth mentioning actually that ghoul charge was a 10-inch charge on 2 dice, but I just chanced it and got lucky. So there you go. In my magic phase, I removed the Oaken Throne yet again. And then I got the breath weapon, Breath of Corruption, on the general. So I've got my insurance policy in case he fails to do enough attacks in place. Pretty happy with that. The coach beat the Griffin commander. Of course, he was charging him on the rear, so I was starting on 3. But the Dark Coach really is a bargain. For 465 points, you get a 3-up armor save, a 4-up Aegis, a chariot, an onboard vampire. The guy pulling it wields 2 attacks with a great weapon. It's an absolute bargain for what it is. So anyway, that was able to take out the commander on Griffin, so that's good news. That's both of those gone now. And then the skeletons were able to drop the Sky Sloop, and elsewhere everything won combat, but everything held. Noteworthy here that Silas issued a duel with his champion, which I happily accepted, because then of course the number of attacks that he could generate at me was limited to, I think, 2. So less opportunity for him to score points, meaning less opportunity for me to pop. So that was the end of my turn 3. Okay, on to Silas's movement 4 here then, and you can see he's just got the 1 charge with the small Lion Guard and the High Prince on the ghouls here, and then he's chaffing up my big unit of skeletons with his sloop. That's fairly expensive chaff, but I do think it's necessary because otherwise of course they would get a flank charge on the Sea Guard, and then he's just sort of dropping his eagle in the middle as a token gesture really. And that's the end of Silas's movement 4. Okay, end of Silas's turn 4 here then. And in the magic phase, he's only got 1 spell off this time, Favour of Melodies being that spell. The sloop has killed a couple of skeletons and shooting, because why not? And then in combat, my vampire has won. He didn't have to use his breath weapon last time, so with the champion having been dispatched, he's now used his breath weapon and caused a total of 11 attacks between the breath weapon and his normal attack. So pretty satisfied with that. That keeps him safe from popping. Then in the middle here, the little Lion Guard and the Sea Guard have beaten off the ghouls, which makes lots of sense. And over here, the Vampire Knights have won against the Sea Guard, but the Sea Guard have held, being a steadfast 8. Fairly poor round of combat from the Sea Guard, not inflicting any wounds on the Vampire Knights, which I was quite surprised about. Anyway, there you go. That's the end of Silas's 4. Okay, my movement 4 here then, and I've got 3 charges off. Obviously charging the sloop here with the skeletons because it's there for the taking, and then a double charge on the Lion Guard with the Dark Coach and the Vampire Count. That's going to hurt. There's a lot of vampiric activity going on over here. And that's the end of my movement 4. Okay. And my turn 4 here then. Not a lot going on in the magic phase. I arose 1 wound on the Dark Coach because I can really. The Vampire Knights beat the Sea Guard here, but you might notice they're in ranks of 6. And so they still have a rank of 5, so they are still steadfast. And yeah, that's annoying actually. The sloop broke from combat over here, but was not caught by the skeletons. And then the vampires, of course, absolutely mullered the Lion Guard and have positioned themselves for charges in my turn 5. So that was the end of my turn 4. Okay, on to Silas's 5 here then. And it's clever play. It's quite defensive play that he's engaging with, but I think it's fairly clever play. He's obviously moved this unit of Lion Guard up here. He knows that it can't dish out enough in combat, so he's just got it positioned so it's really hard for me to reach in the remaining turns so that he can lay claim to the secondary objective. And then 2 units here, hoping to get some sort of counter charge with one or the other against the skeletons. I think if I'd been Silas, I'd have been tempted to kind of wheel this one round a little bit more, because if I go for the sloop and overrun far enough, I'll get out of the arc of vision of the Sea Guard, is the thought that springs to mind as I look at the picture again. Anyway, that's the end of Silas's movement 5. Okay, end of Silas's 5 here then, and in the magic phase he's got Word of Iron off on the Sea Guard, and he's got Favour of Melodies off with his general. Now I was happy to let Word of Iron go through because I knew I had no intention of charging this unit with my skeleton warriors. The reason being I'm planning on triple charging it, albeit long charges with these 3 units here. I'm hoping 2 of these 3 will get in, and they're all going to be hitting so hard that Word of Iron isn't really going to matter. Meanwhile, I'm hoping the skeleton will go after the sloop here, and if he flees, so be it. I will just fail the charge. So that's why I let that through when I couldn't stop Favour of Melodies, but I stopped his other casts, and I didn't make a note of what they were, so we can't talk about that. Apologies, everyone. So then in the rest of Silas's phase, his Sea Guard killed a few more skeletons. It is quite noteworthy actually that he hit 11 times but rolled 6 ones, so that was really disappointing for him. He's had quite a few bad dice rolls actually on multiple occasions in both this game and the last game, I do feel for Silas. And then in combat the Sea Guard here broke against the vampires finally, but I elected not to chase them because I know that they're fleeing, and I know that I can declare a charge with one of my units over here, forcing them to flee, and then I can take a redirection on it is what I'm thinking. So I've decided not to chase them because I want to use this vampire unit to contest the secondary objectives. So that's the end of Silas's turn 5. Okay. And my movement 5 here then, and although it doesn't look it, there have been multiple charges declared in this turn. That the skeletons charged the sloop, which fled, which was fairly predictable. but I wanted to get it fleeing just so it's not fully in Silas's control. And of course, if he fails the rally in turn 6, then it counts as dead. So there is that. And then I've charged with the Dark Coach, which at the time could have made it through that gap, and I charged at the Sea Guard, not with any intention of actually closing the door on them, but actually with the intention of sending them to the board edge, because they're currently discipline 4 because they're decimated. And then both of the counts have charged at the Sea Guard. One has made it in, the other has failed. Of course, I was planning to redirect with the coach. Well, I did successfully redirect with the coach, but didn't make the charge. And then the Knights just kind of sauntering up in the middle here to be near both secondary objectives and to be bearing down on the unit over here. So giving myself options, possibly even going through that gap there and recharging the Lion Guard. But we will see. Right, that was the end of my movement 5. Okay, and my turn 5 here then, and there's not a lot to report on really because there was only one combat. I did get Breath of Corruption off on my count here, and that added to my combat score, and I did a bunch of wounds against the Sea Guard, but they were steadfast and held. And that was the end of my turn 5. Okay, end of Silas's turn 6 here then, and the first thing to report is that these 2 Sea Guard have rallied on a double 1, and so have denied me about 180 points or something like that, because they're now decimated rather than dead, so that's a bit annoying. And then the sloop over here has rallied, but that was always fairly likely. And that was the end of Silas's movement 6. Okay, and then end of Silas's turn 6 here then. And in the magic phase, he got Word of Iron off on the Sea Guard. That's a good play now because, of course, my general's not charging anymore. So that means he's going to be getting an armor save. And he also got Healing Waters off, which was annoying. I put 6 dice in to dispel that. He cast it with 5 and got it. But that's what it was. And then the combat ended up being a draw. So yeah, no one moving around there. I think actually there was a duel issued within all of that, which was a defensive play from Silas, which was good choice actually. So that was the end of Silas's turn 6. Okay, end of my movement 6 here then, and there's just been the one charge with the vampire count down the gap that it was here before the Knights moved into the Lion Guard, so basically coming to just add weight and attacks here, but of course the unit does at least get its Healing Waters against him, although his lance attacks will punch through the Word of Iron, of course. And then I've sidestepped with my Vampire Knights to claim this secondary objective here, meaning worst case scenario, the secondary objectives are drawn. Doesn't mean I'm going to have to accept that I'm not going to get the eagle, but there's not a lot I can do about that. I've elected not to charge here because I don't think the skeletons can deal with the Lion Guard, and they could even potentially end up decimated if combat goes badly, so not going to bother there. That's the end of my movement 6. Okay, and end of my turn 6 here then. I wanted to cast Breath of Corruption, of course, because that would ignore the toxic attacks. That would ignore the armor with it being toxic attacks, but Silas quite rightly dispelled that. But I got the Rot Within off just to limit the proficiency of the attacks back on either of my vampires, because why not? However, my vampires performed quite poorly, only killing 4 Sea Guard between them. That's 10 attacks, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, one of them coming in at strength 7, the other at strength 5, although there is, of course, the Word of Iron and Healing Waters, but I was expecting to kill more than 4 in spite of that, but it was what it was. And then that unit held, because they are, of course, steadfast with 1 rank against no ranks. And that was the end of the game. I had inflicted 2,144 points of damage. Silas had inflicted 1,318, meaning it was a 12-8. The secondary objectives are shared because Silas gets this one with 2 scoring units within 6 inches of it, and I get this one with the only scoring unit within 6 inches of it. Not a lot of time for an in-depth analysis here. I do think I was a little bit unlucky with both of these Sea Guard units. This unit here is 1 model away from being decimated, and this one, of course, passed its discipline 4, and I was expecting it to run off the board. So I do think that 12-8 perhaps ought to be a 13-7, but it's only a friendly game. It doesn't matter. Not sure in terms of any mistakes or how I could have played differently or better, and you're welcome to post those in the comments. Obviously, there was the skeletons, the poor deployment of the skeletons with the hill at the start, and I think my charging the vampire in against the big Lion Guard unit earlier in the game was risky. If I hadn't got Breath of Corruption off, I could have very easily lost a vampire count there, but the situation demanded it, and I think I'd probably do the same thing again in the same circumstance. I don't think I could have avoided the loss of my Vampire Knight unit earlier on in the game because the Griffins were so manoeuvrable, and I think that the way that I positioned the Dark Coach and the other vampire to kind of pincer was the best kind of counter for that I could have dealt with. Although this army list lacks that threat projection, so I wasn't able to take out the eagle. And had Silas have placed that eagle more carefully, he would have mitigated the threat of the coach entirely. So I think I got a bit lucky there, truth be told. Right, that's it. Thank you everybody for joining me. If you're still watching, then I especially appreciate it. Gonna possibly run an Orc and Goblins army soon. Maybe an Orcs, maybe not so much Goblins. We'll see. Anyway, that'll be for next time. Thank you for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you soon.